And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 4, episode 28. We're in the middle of conference season. Great races going on. Today was a UAA Sunday, and it did not disappoint on the men's basketball side. I just watched 4 unbelievable games, and so here we are in a Sunday, and really excited to talk to this next guest. I've talked to head coaches, I've talked to student athletes. What's cool is I haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of like recent graduates, which is an awesome angle for the QCast. Probably should have thought of that sooner to get on some people that are doing cool things in the world and tying that into YD3 and all that stuff. So we have a fun one here today. I've got Jacob Schauer with me, who is a 2023 graduate of Wheaton College in Illinois. He's a former hooper for the Wheaton Thunder, and he's currently in the real world, folks. So he's out there doing stuff. He's a business intelligence analyst for the Milwaukee Bucks. So pretty cool that he's still able to kind of enjoy his love and passion for basketball in the real world. How cool is that? Jacob Schauer, we've talked kind of in DMs for I feel like several years. It's good to finally meet you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
You're in downtown Milwaukee, correct? You're kind of living the good life in the big city. Is that right?
Yep, in the big city. Not quite as big as Chicago, but it's I'm loving it out here. Sitting in my apartment in downtown Milwaukee right now, having a blast. Yeah.
Tell everyone a little bit about just kind of where you grew up. I think people may know that your father is the head men's basketball coach and athletic director at Wheaton College, but talk a little bit. What high school did you go to? Give everyone a little background, if you would.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously most people in this space would know me best as Mike Schauer's son. And so been following him around a little bit. So was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back when he was the coach at Eastern
Yeah.
University. Then moved to Beverly, Massachusetts, where he was the coach for 7 years at Gordon College. And then really I grew up in Wheaton. So I lived about 2 blocks away from Wheaton College, watched all sorts of Wheaton basketball, watched Tim McCrary and Ben Panner and Tyler Peters, and
Yeah.
those guys were my heroes. So grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, went to Wheaton North before going to Wheaton College, had a decent high school career over at Wheaton North, and then lucky enough to go to Wheaton for college. It's awesome.
You mentioned kind of growing up around it. I had Steve Jurakovic on here a couple times, and including recently, and it's great listening to him talk about like being a kid and the guys he remembered. Rob Garnes and Antoine McDaniel, guys that you wouldn't remember. But
Nope. Yep.
who you mentioned some of them. What was that like, kind of sitting in the stands as a kid, watching the highest level of Division III conference kind of teams coming it out? What was that like as a kid watching Wheaton play?
Yeah, it was so much fun. I mean, like I said, those guys are my heroes. So you have guys that, like when they're kids, they look up to Kobe Bryant or LeBron James. I looked up to guys like Tyler Peters. So when I was in middle school, I'd try to go on the left block and do a lefty jump hook like Tyler Peters would do, or watch some move that Tim McCrary had, like an elbow drive and a reverse layup and stuff like that. And the really valuable thing for me was not watching them in the stands, but being at practices where they got to say hi to me after practice, or we'd play one on one and mess around, do a free throw contest, and just watching practice, hearing them interact, hearing coaches coach. It was super valuable for me and great memories.
Loaded question here, but I mean, can you narrow it down? Is there a best Wheaton player? I think I know the answer, maybe, but is there a best Wheaton player that you saw play?
I mean, it's got to be Aston
I
Francis,
I
right? I
would
mean,
think so. I would think so. But Tim
the
McCrary was pretty. I mean, it seems obvious, but I could find a way to make a case for 5 or 6 other guys if I really tried.
no, you totally could. I will make the case for Aston because that Elite Eight game where he scored what 62 in the
62
against
against
Marietta.
Marietta. Yeah.
Yeah, so being in person for that one, I mean, we were watching what like 5 minutes. We look up, he's already at 20 something points,
Right.
and uh, being down 13 with only a couple minutes left of the game, and him finding a way to find a win basically felt like out of nowhere, even though Marietta played so fast. But yeah, watching the stuff that he did in person, and then also being on the other side and seeing the work that he put in to get there
Right.
was pretty special for me. So I would go with Aston. Yeah.
Yeah, and I go back way longer than you do. I started watching the Illinois Wesleyan Wheaton rivalry got great in the mid '90s, and when Coach Harris really got it back rolling. And
Mhm.
I mean, I go back to us having Crabtree and Simic and Corey Kuhn in those years. And I mean, Matt Nadelhofer and Senek and Senef and Wesley Pitts go to Charles Ridley. You keep going to Jonathan Stephen and Kent Raymond and
Mhm.
Joel Coleman and Tim McCrary. You mentioned Aston Francis, but we could just keep naming guys. I mean, pretty cool, as a kid to get to be around, several of those guys, right? Just year after year. I mean, Wheaton has had superstars.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really cool to see the work that those guys put in, but also just the talent that they have, and
Yeah.
they uh, like playing one on one against Tim McCrary, and he would palm the ball and then hold it above my head, and I'd reach up and try to grab it, and I couldn't. And so guys like that, and even teammates that I had watching Ye Namie Dome play, and then watching Tyson play, and
Yeah.
being having to guard them in practice and watching them score on me quite a lot, stuff like that. Just so many good players have come from Wheaton,
Yeah,
definitely.
Tyson Cruikshank, the Jostens Trophy winner last year, incredible player who didn't come to Wheaton as a finished product. He was a guy that was a role guy and just kept getting better and kept getting better. And all of a sudden, last year, he's one of the best players in the country. Wins the Jostens, pretty incredible. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff related to Wheaton basketball. I also have to ask you before we get much deeper. I mean, to me, kid, your biggest accomplishment here, you're engaged to Annie Tate, correct? So is she the new D3 record holder for free throws in a game? She made 28 free throws in a game. Is that right?
28 of 29. I was lucky enough to be there in person, and Elmhurst just kind of kept on fouling her, and she kept putting the ball in the hoop, and it was so much fun to watch. I'm not sure how many people have followed her career. Her sophomore year, she was a coaches association All-American honorable mention. The COVID year had a really great COVID year. Wheaton had a really good year, but only played a few games. And then junior year was a preseason All-American and was on pace to have a similar type of season, and then missed the last maybe two-thirds of the season, missed all of last season. And so for her to be back this season and playing as well as she has, it's been a real blessing to watch her play, and I'm really fortunate. So it's been
Yeah,
awesome.
she's a 5'10" senior guard. She went to St. Charles North, so she's from the area.
Mhm.
Obviously, she's having a big season, 19 points, 7 rebounds a game. How long have the two of you been engaged, by the way?
Only a couple months since October, so not very long.
Okay, you need to remember dates like this. When I start firing dates, you need to have these things written down. It
Yep.
only gets worse as you go forward. So now, do we have a wedding date, or is this one of these like, oh, we'll figure it out down the road? Is there a date?
There is a date. It is June 22nd, so that's what, like 5 months away. It's all happening very, very quickly for
That's
me. So I'm
wow.
excited.
That I noticed that the date is not during basketball season. I noticed it's not
Oh
like
gosh, no.
Saturday night in January, correct?
Yeah, thank goodness for that. That would be a disaster.
And my final question is like, how did you propose? Did you are you like a jumbotron guy? Like you took her to the Bulls game and like there it was on the jumbotron? Were you low key? I mean, what can you tell me about how you pulled this off?
Yeah, pulled this off. That's a good way to put it. So she lives on a farm basically. It's basically a horse farm. So lots of scenic places there. Was able to surprise her with my family showing up, and so the first thing that she saw when she realized what was going on is Mike Schauer walking into her house. Like, what on earth is he doing here, right? And
He's
so
drawn up some plays or something. Yeah, who
yeah,
knows?
exactly. And so um, it was really nice, really low key. Had both families there at her place, so it was really awesome.
Well, congratulations to both of you. It's a incredible D3 story, incredible Wheaton story. Well, we're all rooting for you guys. So I'm glad to know you didn't use the jumbotron. By the way, had you said, "Yeah, I had it on the jumbotron," I would have judged. I would have judged.
Fair play
So
for doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
tell me what the heck a business intelligence analyst is, by the way. I think this is the coolest thing that you're working for the Milwaukee Bucks. Um, what does a business intelligence analyst do?
Yeah, great question. So it is data analysis on the ticketing side of things. So I'm not hanging out with players. I'm not watching practices. I'm not trying to help people figure out how the Bucks can win basketball games. I'm helping the Bucks figure out how to run their business well. And so
Sure.
there's lots of ticketing reporting, lots of coding, and a little bit of predictive modeling in there. So I'm having a blast out here at the Bucks. It's a really great organization. Downtown Milwaukee is a really fun place to be. So I'm having a lot of fun.
You mentioned as a kid, your basketball influences all the Wheaton Hoopers you got to be around. But, over the years, I felt going back several years, you were very, in some of our direct message conversations, you were very interested in the analytics side of this stuff. And so I feel like, where you grew up watching Tim McCrary, you kind of also grew up watching Matt Snyder and Logan Hansen and Massey.
Mhm.
Like, have you always gravitated to like the analytics side of some of the D3 stuff? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I've always been more of a numbers person. Obviously, my dad's always been more of a coach, and a lot of people in high school would ask me like, "Hey, are you going to coach? Are you going to follow your dad?" And people in college started to realize that I really enjoyed the numbers side of things, especially the predictive side of things, where you mentioned Logan Hansen. He deserves so much credit for what I've done, where I have similar found. We'll probably get to it later, but I have similar foundations in my work that he has, where you'd look at his stuff in college, and the predictions that he had would like outperform human intuition, right? Where
Yes.
he even Logan would look at it sometimes and go, "Man, I don't know if that's right." But then it would, and it's not like
Right.
it's magic, but it would do better than most humans would have
Yeah.
guessed
Yeah.
on the game. And another one to put in there would be D3 Bubble.
Oh yeah.
Seeing the stuff that Drew's done, I mean, you'd look at his analysis and then you'd look at the regional rankings coming out the next day. You're wondering if this guy was like wiretapping the rat calls or something. Like he just does some really, really great stuff. And so those are the people that certainly look up to as well. And then Matt, you mentioned Matt, he's got so much data coming in with his efficiency ratings and his regional ranking stuff and score predictions. And there's so much data coming in from what he's doing. And so you're absolutely right. Those are people I also look up to as well, no doubt.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned D3 Bubble Drew. I should have thrown him out there, Drew Pasteur. Um, so at D3 Bubble on Twitter. And what Drew does is, I mean, he's got like regional ranking models. He has like real time, the whole country mapped out and what pool they're in, like A or C. And then based on that, like here's the first C, the second C, the third C. It's unbelievable. Matt Snyder, everything's folded into d3datacast.com. He's got efficiency ratings. He has regional ranking models. He also has score predictive models, which is cool. Logan Hansen has a focus on the football side of it, and he's unbelievable, like the stuff he does. Of course, Massey. How much have you been influenced by like what Massey does? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been looking at Massey ratings probably since I don't know second grade, and so just even like planting that seed that it's even possible. And a lot of credit also goes to Ken Massey because he posts all the scores and schedule data, and that's what I
Right.
use to come up with what I came up with. So lots of credit goes to him too.
So let's talk about what you came up with because that's kind of how this conversation started. Is I don't know, a few weeks ago, I can't remember how long ago, you sent, I think it was me and Matt Snyder, a link to kind of some things
Mhm.
you were working on. It was like, hey, this is in draft status, but check this out. We were like, this is awesome. And to me and to Matt and whoever else, like anyone that wants to create new D3 content, it's like, let's go, bring it on, because
Mhm.
it's Division 3, and this is we don't have ESPN and 5 million outlets that are doing this for. This is just a bunch of random people that are in a community, and we do this for free and we have fun with it, right? So What
Hmm.
what drove you, before we get into exactly what your models are and stuff, like what drove you to even get into this? Because you're taking a lot of your own time, free time away to work on this. So what led to this?
Yeah, so I've been working on this since last season. So you could ask my college roommates. They're watching me sit on my computer all the time, trying to fine tune this thing and see how it would go. And
It's great.
yeah, I'd say of the uh, of the people that we mentioned, the biggest inspiration for me was Logan because what he yeah, he had something that people really looked at, where coaches are looking at this and wondering, "Hey, where are we at? What can we
Right.
do to improve? What can we?" And you look at he's really good at comparing his work to others people's work and being like, "Hey, I think my stuff might be the best stuff that's out there." And
Right.
so I reached out to him last year wondering about his methodology, and so that's like I said, the foundation for what I'm doing. I was just kind of wondering, like, hey, could something similar work for basketball like it does so well for football? Because he has that thing obviously so locked in
Right.
right now.
And this isn't like an accidental thing that you got this interest, is that saying where you say, like, well, that guy's not a math major. Well, this guy is a math major, folks. Jacob Schauer is a math major from Wheaton College, and he had a stats concentration in there. So you truly have been a guy that's loved analytics and statistics and things like that. Does that go all the way back to being a kid or high school, or when did that come about?
Yeah, I've always been remotely interested in statistics. I'd say reading Moneyball in high school was a fun thing to do. Maybe started getting those gears
Sure.
turning. I think that's common for a lot of people in my place. The real turning point for me was junior year of college. I took a machine learning class in my as one of my math requirements, and Dr. Darcy Delzell, I'll shout her out. She's currently working at, like, I think, a senior data scientist at Grubhub, and really made it something really interesting for me. Made it something that I really wanted to do. I'd go to all sorts of office hours, try and pick her brain, and she really encouraged me and pushed me, like, "Hey, I think you can do this. I think you should do this. I think you really enjoy this." So a lot of credit goes to her too. She was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool that again, just we'll talk about this a little more towards the end, but the ability to be a student athlete, but also be doing all the things you were doing behind the scenes to prepare yourself for life after college is what it's all about, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
so tell me what your models do there. You tweeted out last week, which was like, I saw it and I was like, oh, here we go, it's ready to roll. And there's two
Hmm.
links on there. One of them is Division 3 men's basketball predictive ratings, and the other link is Division 3 men's basketball score predictions. So just kind of talk us through. We talked about, like, should we share a screen or something? We decided for now it's just easiest for you to articulate what you've built, and then people can go poke around. But tell us what you've built.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think the first and most important thing about this is that these ratings are purely predictive. So it says predictive in there. And I think that's really important because there's a difference between descriptive stats and predictive stats, right?
Ooh,
And
here we
so,
go. You're going to lose me
yep, here
soon,
we
but
go.
keep
So,
rolling. Keep rolling.
yeah, and so I think the best way I could explain this is you'd look at my ratings, and I think there'd be some fans that would look at it and go, "Wait, my team is having a really good season. We're
Right?
16-1, 17-0, whatever you, but we're only ranked here. Why are we rated so low when we're having such a good season, right?"
Right.
And so my ratings aren't trying to figure out who's had a good season. They're trying to figure out who's going to continue to have a good season in the future. And there is a difference there. And so for those fans, I would say take a deep breath. Your team is having a good season, and your team could certainly continue to have a good season. And like I said, like, this isn't magic. There's, what, 418 teams. We're trying to uh, take so many games and put them together and come up with something. And so it's not perfect, and the games happen in real life. And I get to live in, like, a little fantasy land where I get to put it all on a computer and see what comes up, right? And so that'd be the first thing that I'm trying to predict future games. And so you said there were two different links, and they're not actually two different models. It's both are coming from the same model.
They
So
just output different things, basically.
basically, yep. And so what happens is the ratings are used to predict the score of the game.
Gotcha.
So if two teams were to play each other and one team has a rating of 10 and the other team has a rating of 7 and they're playing on a neutral court, then the team with rating 10 would be favored by 3 points according to my model. My model uses 2.5 points for the home team. So if team with rating 10 is playing team with rating 7 and the team with rating 7 is at home, then the team with rating 10 is only favored by half a point instead of 3 points. And so I think that's a good baseline to start with as people poke around there. These are purely predictive. And so you can be having a good season and you could be not
Right.
rated very well. You could have a few poor results or a few more losses than some teams, but you could still have a nice rating. And you can use those ratings. I would like it to be fairly interpretable, where you can use those ratings to come up with score predictions the same way Logan Hansen does.
So let me ask, I'll dig into one that jumped out to me, which has probably jumped out to you, is Calvin. Like where you've got Calvin is jumps out as really low relative to what they are in the top 25 poll, or what maybe, the eye test would say to me. So what you're saying is your model says that moving forward, you're predicting what they will do moving forward. That it will not be at the point where they're number what, 2 or 3 or 4, they're number 4 I think in the top 25 poll, the human voter subjective poll that has no numbers to it.
Mm-hmm.
So them being rated wherever they are, somewhere around 24 25 in your model, I guess the question is, what's the data going into it? Are you looking at results, margin of victory? Are you looking deeper than that with like analytics from the way the team play? What goes into it?
No, yeah, I didn't want to single out certain teams, but since you did it, here we go, right? So I actually think I haven't checked Matt's ratings in a few days, but I think I actually have Calvin rated higher than he does, which is
Really?
interesting to think about. I think so. I can't remember. So I use um, I use purely margin of victory, and so I am not looking at results. So in the confines of what I've done, if you win by one, that's not too uh, dissimilar to losing by one. There's
Okay.
a and obviously in the real world, that's not how that works at all. A 1 point win is extremely different from a 1 point loss, right?
Right.
And so I think what's going on with Calvin is there are a few closer wins, if you will,
Yeah.
that my model seems to think a better team. Obviously, Calvin's a great team, but other teams maybe would have won by more. And
Gotcha.
so, and you're totally right. That's a team that I look at and I kind of pause like, wow, is that correct? Is that something that going forward, are they really only the 23rd, 24th, 22nd, wherever they are when they have such good results, right? And they have a few pretty convincing ones too. So yeah, that's a good one to consider. You're asking the right questions. So yeah.
Well, and I've always felt as a longtime voter in the top 25 poll, I've always felt that the human voters don't do a great job with tough games where a great team loses the tough game. So like if Illinois Wesleyan goes to Elmhurst and loses the game, in a poll they might, like, I'm just going to make this up, go from 15 to out, like, oh my god, they lost.
Mhm.
Whereas let's say that
Yeah.
it's a close game, or like, I don't think humans do great assessing kind of how a game plays out. I think models a lot of times do a better job with losses. Is what I'm saying make sense at all? That's something I've noticed
No,
over the
yeah,
years.
it makes total sense. You could easily move up in your ratings under the confines of what I've done after a loss. So,
Right,
for
right.
example, on Wednesday, when Wheaton loses by 1 to Illinois Wesleyan, Wheaton's rating went up a little bit, and Illinois
Sure.
Wesleyan's rating went down a little bit. And
Right.
so,
Right.
certainly possible. I think on the flip side, you could also have teams that haven't played a super strong strength of schedule yet, or have weaker opponents that they've been playing against, but they beat them by so many points that my my model can't ignore how well it appears that they have been playing, even if they don't have great results, meaning they haven't beaten super quality opponents yet. The
Right.
manner in which they've beaten those opponents makes my model lend itself to believe that this is still a good team.
So, like, best example, that would be Trinity of Connecticut. Trinity of
Absolutely.
Connecticut
Yep.
is undefeated, and like I keep taking pot shots at their strength of schedule. People are voting them 1 or 2, and I keep saying, well, Massey has their schedule as like 350. But if
Mhm.
you look at it, they're pasting people. They're winning games by 20, 25 consistently. Now that said, I think they beat Wesleyan in overtime yesterday. That was a tough road game.
Mhm.
Um, that would be a good example though, Jacob, right? Is like their schedule is weak, relatively speaking, but
Mhm.
your model says they are crushing people, and so it takes that all into account.
Exactly. And so that's a great example of the difference between a rating system that tries to describe how teams have been playing in the past. I think most people would agree that Trinity's results, just by pure win loss and who they've beaten, are just okay. I think a lot of other teams would have also had a good record against some of that competition, right? But there are probably a lot of teams that would not have won by as many points as Trinity Connecticut has done with the schedule that they have. So,
That's a yeah, and that is a fair point too. Is every time someone says that back to me, I've got to sit there and say that's true. It's like they are winning those games handily.
mhm.
Their schedule isn't great across, top to bottom, but they have really blasted people. Um, that makes where does this thing go with you? Like, is this something that is this a thing you're trying out? Is this something you plan to build on and keep improving? Or like how do you look at this new thing that you've built? Because people are going to latch onto this, and
Mhm.
this is going to be one of the new bookmarks that everyone goes to. So what's the future where you want to take this?
Yeah, you're totally right. I've had all sorts of college coaches follow me, I'm assuming solely to click that link, go up to the search bar, search their team, and see how nice or mean I am to them with my rating. And so, yeah, I certainly think that this can improve. I think it will improve over time. I don't think I'll be watching quite enough games to give my personal eye
Right.
test opinion. I'll be that annoying nerd that has things to say mathematically, but doesn't actually watch the games. One of those like stereotypical like box score checking people that doesn't actually watch the game. But I think there's a lot of space for this to improve, and um, it's something I really enjoy doing, and so I think we're going to continue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool because there are some really good models out there. We mentioned Massey, we mentioned Matt Snyder, we mentioned Drew Pasteur, D3 Bubble, and those have become foundational for Division 3 fans. It's really quite amazing that we have that stuff, because I can't even imagine how much work it goes into maintaining these things. I can't even imagine it. I mean, I try to do some D3 Pool C bracketology every year, and I can't believe how much time I spend on that. And I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. But how much
hmm
time do you have to spend on this? Like, what's the process of updating it and things? Like, is this labor intensive? I would assume.
What was labor intensive was creating a model and tuning it to a point where it was like, hey, this is predictive. This is doing a good job of understanding
Sure.
the good teams from the not good teams and understanding a best guess at what a score in tomorrow's game might be. That was the labor intensive part. And then from there, the goal is automation, where I'm assuming Matt Snyder, all of what he does just kind of happens. He's automated everything so well. I'm not quite there yet. I'm in click a few buttons of code scripts, and that is what updates things. So it's relatively automated. You're only clicking a few buttons. You're clicking run, basically a play button. But yeah, the labor intensive part is coming up with something that works, and then
Right.
updating and publicizing. That's when things get easy and fun.
Right. And you're going to start hearing from people too, right? There's going to be people that are
Oh, no
happy
doubt.
with your numbers. There's going to be people that are mad at your numbers. So it's great to have it. Just a couple more. The main reason we want to do this is just to get this out there so people know what you've built and how to find it. And I will make sure I will tweet all of Jacob's stuff out so people have this as part of this QCast link. So we'll make sure that people have it. Got to ask you, were you able to watch the Wheaton Illinois Wesleyan game this past week? Were you around and able to check that one out?
I was not around. I was here. I was watching Wheaton women's basketball versus Augustana for the first portion,
Yeah,
and luckily for me, and then I was following the men's game on the live stats. Luckily for me, the little air conditioning delay, whatever that was, I didn't fully understand what that was, but that little 30-minute delay meant that I got to watch the last 10 minutes or so of that game, and that was right about when Wheaton was winning, and then all of a sudden they weren't. So maybe me watching the game, maybe I was the problem. So
well, you're superstitious, just like the rest of us are, which I like. But with the history here of these two teams playing in that gym, I mean, when there was, what was there, 4 seconds, three point something at the end. I mean, I assume as a Wheaton fan, because I know on the other side, I just assumed that the ball was going in. Whatever happened, I assume a shot was going to be made. Did you assume as a Wheaton
mhm.
fan that thing's going in? Whatever play is run, that thing's going to go in.
I wouldn't say I assumed it was going in, but I was definitely thinking to the Aston Francis three at Illinois Wesleyan and the Namier Dome bank in three, and then Tyson getting fouled. Like that, those all go through my mind as this happened. And then here's a good one: Andrew John's reverse layup at the buzzer. I don't know if you remember. You certainly
Remembered
remember that
very
one. You
well.
have to.
That was
So
like Sean Johnson makes a three right before
yep,
that, I think. Yeah, Sean Johnson makes
right,
a three from the
right in
left
the
wing,
corner with like,
left corner.
yeah, with like one of those two, yeah. With what, like
Absolutely.
8 seconds left, 10 seconds left, however many it was. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Those all as a Titan fan, when Luke Yoder made the shot, the first thing I thought wasn't, oh great, we're winning. The
Oh
first
no,
thing I
definitely
thought
not.
was
No.
like, oh my God, it's gonna happen again. And I don't know if I can take this. That's so I had to ask if you were able to watch. So it sounds like you were due to whatever was going on there in the building. You'll have to ask the Wheaton athletic director what was going on. I still am not clear what was leaking, but if you can find the AD, you should check with him.
Yeah, I should let him know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, ask him what happened there. Final topic is just a little bit. I don't want to let you leave because you have such great perspective on kind of the YD3 topic. Again, you were a student athlete and you did great things on the student side, the athlete side. Here you are, like in the real world, already crushing it. Um, Tell me what your experience was like as a D3 student athlete. Like, give us a little thought on that, kind of like why Division 3 is something that works so well for you.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of my D3 experience was also as a coach's son, and so there's like, of course, there's different dynamics that go with that, and you don't avoid that. And I think so much of my D3 experience was about the people around me, and so one of the most important things to me was how I was treated by teammates as a coach's son, right? Where
Sure.
uh, you're treated differently. Maybe people look at you different, like, oh, you're just an extension of our coach, things of that nature. And a few years ago, a former teammate said something that meant a lot to me. He goes, if you sat in a Wheaton basketball practice and you didn't know any of the players, you wouldn't be able to look around and go, oh, that's the coach's son. Because look at how he's being treated here. Or look at, and so that says a lot about both the coaching staff, but also teammates that they took me in. And I was not Coach Schauer's son on that team, and I was Jacob. right? That meant a lot to me, and that was so much about my YD3 and my D3 experience. And then I think the other thing about YD3 is I'm assuming for you, a lot of your answers to YD3 is why Illinois Wesleyan. A lot of
Sure.
my answers to YD3 would be why Wheaton, right? And so Wheaton, it's a national poll, right? People are coming from all over. Our starting lineup yesterday was from Indiana, Colorado, Minnesota, Arizona, and
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Right.
And so that's a really cool thing about Wheaton. And you're playing for a place that is competing nationally at Division III. You know this well. There's so many good players that come through Wheaton and it's CCW and all these other top leagues.
Yeah.
And then Wheaton meant a lot to me because it was a place where we're doing something bigger than ourselves, right? Where I'm at some colleges, maybe I would have just been a basketball player or I would have just been a math student. And at Wheaton, you are a Christ follower who plays basketball and studies math. And so that meant a lot to me too. So a lot of my D3 is also why Wheaton.
As it should be. Yeah, absolutely. As it should be. That's really cool. And on the basketball side of it, you were part of some great teams. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
team last year, the Elite Eight team, really a talented group, lost out at Christopher Newport, right? And they played in the game to go to the
Yep.
Final Four, right? Played Christopher Newport.
Oh yeah.
Year before Sweet 16, the COVID year, which was a messed up year for everybody. That was 12-1 year, 10-0 in the CCIW. So like you also got to be up close on a whole bunch of like really good teams, right?
Yeah. It was so much fun. And then especially to share some of those moments with your dad as a coach, lifelong memories for us as a family too, where it probably would have been lifelong memories if we were going 15-11 every year and getting bounced in the first round of the conference tournament. But to go on NCAA tournament runs and go on drives to St. Louis and flights to Newport News and
Yeah.
to be able to share those experiences as a family was really cool. So lifelong memories.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear you talk about that. I had Steve Jurkovic and Ron Rose on about a week and a half ago, and I asked Ron what it was like to coach his son Brady, and I asked Steve what it was like to be coached by his father Bosco, and to have you on so close in time and hear you talk about that perspective is very cool, and so I appreciate that. Well, Jacob, I really appreciate your time, and can't thank you enough for what you've done to build this predictive model, and people are going to love it. So we'll make sure we get it out there. I do want to give you any final thoughts. You'll have some Wheaton folks tuning in. You'll have some of the D3 analytics folks tuning in. You'll have D3 Nation tuning in. I'll give you the final thoughts on anything you'd like to share with the group as we start to close it out today.
I appreciate that. So as always, the first thought would be thank you and thanks to all these people that are promoting D3 and making D3 what it is. D3 is all about people, right? And so to have great people promoting D3 means a lot. My final word is going to be a little bit weird as we talked about. I'm engaged to Annie Tate, and you listed off her stats. Those are some very good stats. I understand that they're only 10-8, but I would hope that there are some people listening to this that have some authority over making Annie Tate an all-region player this year. I know Region 8's loaded. I know they're 10-8, but she's putting up similar numbers to All-American and preseason All-American seasons she's had in the past.
Right.
Let's get Annie Tate on an all-region team.
I can get behind that, Jacob. I was looking at her
All right.
numbers, and they are absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's her free throw percentage? Like 87% or something like that. She had the 28 of 29 free throw game. She's scoring, she's
Uh-huh.
rebounding, she's defending. So I can
Mm-hmm.
get behind that, Jacob. It's a good call, and we'll make sure that people in charge kind of start to make sure they don't forget based on what the overall season record is, right? Those players can't all come from teams at the top of the standings. So hey, I appreciate it, Jacob. This has been really fun. This has been great. People are going to get a lot out of this. I know that the
Mm-hmm.
analytics guys are going to be all over this, so that's why I'm
Oh
excited
yeah.
about this. They're going to be all over this QCast. Folks, that
Mhm.
is season 4, episode 28 of the QCast. Jacob Schauer has been our guest today. Jacob is a business intelligence analyst for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's a recent grad of Wheaton College, played hoops there, and has done great things. So, Jacob, really appreciate your time and look forward to chatting with you very soon.
Appreciate it, Bob. Thank you so much for having me. It was a
Thank
blast.
you.